I want to show a clip. This is, anybody can see this up on YouTube. Scott Kesterton is the guy behind this. And this is, you know, there's no profanity. It's not terribly graphic, but it's battle, and it's serious. Michael, let's roll this if we could. Go ahead, please. That goes on for another 2.5 minutes. Just a little snippet of that we plucked off YouTube. Were you ever shot at?
A couple of times, yeah. Not as in firefights as intense as I described in Contact Charlie and in the Panjwai district. That clip actually took place in July 2006. It's around a part of the Panjwai called Pashmal.
In the Canadian Forces, there's always been a huge frustration that we were always labeled peacekeepers, and our guys used to, and girls and gals and guys used to say, you know, hey sir, we're soldiers. We can do the full spectrum of operations for our country whenever we need to do it, and being labeled a peacekeeper takes the spectrum from here down to there. And then not only to be labeled a peacekeeper, but to be put in places on missions where actually there was no peace to keep, then was a misuse of those men and women. So it was a great frustration, a very frustrating term for the people in uniform themselves. And in fact, I thought it was the wrong term to describe the Canadian Forces, who actually train to manage violence on behalf of the people of Canada when it's needed.
About 15% of the Canadian Forces personnel are women. About 2% of Canadian Regular Force combat troops are women. That's about 99 female combat officers. 7,900 women are currently serving in the Regular Force. 4,800 women are serving in the primary reserve. The size of the Canadian military is between 60 and 62,000, and in the reserves between 20 and 25,000. And of course, most people know we've got 2,500 or so soldiers in Afghanistan today.
Even more today in the type of combat that we're engaged with in counterinsurgency operations, I think women are essential in the frontline combat units. You know, we're dealing with women and children that we need to gain the trust from. And it's a little bit harder to do that as a man, certainly in Afghanistan.
The bottom line for the military is, can you do the job? Can you do your bit, and will you watch my back? And that's really, they're very pragmatically oriented. As long, soldiers, that's what they care about. Can you do the job? Are you going to back me up?
We got enough boots on the ground to get the job done?
I think in a fast answer, no. And part of this stems from the fact that the Canadian Forces have been reducing in strength for many, many years. And we're now at the stage of suddenly being involved in a heavy-duty warfighting role at the same time as we're trying to increase the number of people in the forces, so that you have now a competition for those crucial warrant officers and sergeants and senior NCOs who do the critical leadership job on the ground in Afghanistan, but at the same time are the guys that you need to do the training of new soldiers back in Canada.
Extending the term for our soldiers who are over there. What do you think of that idea?
We have, as a standard matter of policy, tried to arrange it so that a soldier spends 6 months rather, in preparation to go over to the next rotation, then another 6 months there, and then looking for another period of perhaps 3 rotations, 18 months, before that person can be thought of going back into the cycle again, for the simple purpose that you need the standard career progression training that takes place. You need to have some time with wives and families, and you need simply the downtime of not being in a high-intensity war environment.
So the minister has rejected that idea. Was he right to do so?
Well, I think that really what this proposal was looking at was not so much the idea of taking, say, a Navy sonar technician and trying to convert that person into infantry, but rather looking at the fact that there are some trades that are effectively doing the same job. I mean, a Navy cook is a cook. Cooking on a ship is different than cooking in the field, but you're looking at the cooking trade. So as a consequence, it's not too difficult to take a Navy cook and deploy that person conceptually somewhere else, or a communicator, or a supply technician, or a clerk administrative, this sort of thing.
Were there any stories that you think you would not have gotten had you not been embedded with your unit?
Almost everything. Almost everything. For instance, I did a whole series of stories about how the Army was using 1944 era pistols. right? The pistols, little handguns they used as their last line of defense go back to the Second World War. They had problems with equipment because they had these new satellite radios that they had to duct tape onto the back of their lab, sort of red-green approach.
And you don't think you'd have got those stories if you weren't there?
No, absolutely not, because I got those stories because soldiers would walk up to me and go, "Hey, Wattie," you know, and sort of nod in the general direction. You might want to check this out. They would tell me things. When I wrote the book, it was kind of touching. All the soldiers I spoke to, and there were dozens of them, hundreds of hours of interviews, all of them had this really touching desire. We just want our story told. We just want to hear the truth. And the stories that came out were just remarkable. I was constantly putting down my pen and paper or hanging up the phone and going, you know, I could make this stuff up.